This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning to everybody and welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands here in South Africa. We have started the morning with a lovely overcast day. It looks like it's actually already raining in quite a few places and we are expecting quite a bit here this morning. I know Pridelands is already getting wet. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari here this morning. Behind the camera this morning is Owen. And we are actually sitting up in a beautiful open area called Sandy Patch. You'll see we have already got our rain roof on. We are prepared in case it does get a little bit wet. So you'll see the bar every now and then as Owen moves the camera. And what we're actually doing is we're headed towards the area where the Talamati Pride was yesterday. We want to go and have a look. There was a fresh buffalo calf that they had killed. And so we want to go and see if there was any action there overnight. Maybe the tracks can tell us the story if there aren't any animals there. We'd love to hear from you this morning, so if you have any questions, any comments that you'd like to send in, please do. You can find us at #WildEarth on Twitter. If you're under the age of 18, pop us an email on kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Or you can register on the WildEarth website, head over to the channel page and submit your questions there. We will be waiting to hear from you and answer them for you. So at the moment it is quite quiet up here on Sandy Patch. It is a beautiful view though, and you can see there is a lot of cloud cover building. So we are expecting rain from about 6 o'clock this morning. The beautiful thing about this weather is that it is nice and cool, and what that means is animals should be moving around quite a bit today, especially the predators. And I am hoping we do get to catch up with the Talamati Pride. You can imagine on a day like today, they don't need to be hiding in the shade. They can be moving around and using energy. And hopefully that means that they will have come back towards the carcass last night. When I left, they were actually moving away from it, but towards the dam. So I don't know how far they will have gone. They may have left the area altogether since they had already eaten, or they may have just been going to get some water and then come back during the night when it was a bit cooler. That being said, I know when we were on the way back, the hyenas were on their way there, and so maybe they got to the carcass first. You never know. So you can see that mist in the distance. It is raining already in the distance, and so we are expecting that to hit us sometime soon. And so hopefully it doesn't get too hectic for us this morning, but I think it's just going to be a bit of a light shower. Gia, you got your coffee ready and you are hoping for a great bumble. Me as well. I think it's going to be a great day, especially when you start a day with cooler weather like this. It tends to become quite productive if you can find animals. It can be a little bit more challenging to find them. But I have had my coffee and so I'm feeling rather awake. I'm sure I'll wake up more and more as the morning goes. But we'll definitely be looking for as many things as we can find today. Normally there's a herd of impalas that's up here on Sandy Patch. They're actually a little bit further towards the edge and we can't see them really at the moment, but we've seen glimpses of them. And they are, as the crow flies, maybe 500, 600 meters from where the carcass was last night. So not that far. But they feel nice and safe in an open area like this. They can use their senses much better when we're in a clearing. And so I'm sure they've spent the night and now they're actually going to be moving off to start feeding. I'm hoping that because it is nice and cool, if there are any animals at that carcass, that they might still be active. They won't be sleeping yet, unless, of course, the lions have managed to come back and they have eaten themselves into a bit of a stupor this morning, which is very likely with lions, especially considering they had already eaten yesterday morning. Now they've got a whole new carcass they've had to attack during the night. You can hear there are quite a few birds out. Still a few insects that are awake as well, some of the nocturnal insects like crickets. And even some frogs. So I think as cool as it is and as overcast as it is, I think all the animals are going to be out and about today, big and small, and so that's the goal, to find as much as we can for you. I'm going to carry on towards where that carcass was. Hopefully I can give you a good update when we get there. And while I start heading off, let's have a look at what our weather's doing for the day.
Good morning everyone. Someone is hungry, very hungry, sifting through some delicious fresh dung in the morning. What more does one want? Mr. Red-billed Hornbill. Only the freshest dung will do, so someone laid that fairly recently. Good morning, my name is Lauren and I do have Davi on camera once again. It's a very different day from yesterday. We've got our rain roofs on again, which is really unfortunate. I do not like the rain roof, but it's better that than getting wet. And 75% chance of rain, so also 25% not, but we're going to go with it. I'm going to quickly check the hyena den. But I have a funny feeling the hyenas might be in the western part of the reserve where the carcass or the carcasses are. And then I'll scratch around for Tlalamba. She was left on cheetah cut line. It became a negative log once it got dark. And I think she's taken them to a kill. She's full, so I think she's made a kill, had some herself to obviously restore her energy, replenish, and then bring the cubs. I just want to see where the tracks go. I won't be off-roading anywhere with this rain roof on, but I do want to know exactly where they are and where they moved from last night. Naturally, I hope they didn't go south past Gowrie Main or east past Cheetah Cut Line. I'm naturally hoping that they just stayed quite happily on Juma. But for those of you who maybe missed it, it was such a wonderful drive. It went from being really exhausting and tedious and sweaty for the first hour. I was determined to just check some dens and figure out where she was, and then we came on some fresh tracks. Little did I realise they were piping hot fresh. The steam was still coming off of them. Stopped to admire a butterfly, and lo and behold, just like the sighting before with the Inkahumas, we found Tlalamba, and immediately she called out her cubs. I think it's one boy and one girl, but the girl I can't 100% see. If you look at the boy, I actually went back last night and just looked at my photos and all the screenshots, because sometimes when you're live, you're not absorbing the moment the same as you would if you were watching it in a screen or through a screen. And the boy is her double. The boy just looks like Tlalamba. The boy is bigger, I feel, and quite confident, actually. I've got a video of him coming right up to the tire, having a little sniff. The one that's smaller, I feel, is female. She's got a completely different face. Her eyes are much daintier and much more feminine-like, actually. And she's a little bit nervous. But I can't 100% say it's female. I feel that that's what I saw when they were wrestling. James Richard, I know you were very happy yesterday. And yes, I really hope it continues. At least we have an idea now. I mean, before yesterday afternoon, I had no idea. I knew she was using the eastern slice of the reserve from Buffelshoek Dam all the way down to sort of Gowrie Main. But I had no idea, really. We just worked it and we got there. But it's funny because Tandy, when she had Mariebs, and James and I were looping round and round and round during that sort of lockdown period, used that exact same eastern slice. Drakensberg, Gowrie Pan, Cheetah Cut Line, and Tlalamba's using the exact same area. It's unbelievable. But yes, James, let's hope our leopard luck continues. Even if we can't pick up on Kalamba, maybe we can pick up on someone else. But if she's taking them to a kill, I think we might be able to track them if the rain does not come down. If the rain comes down, then we might be in a little bit of trouble. But moral of my story is I need to stop and appreciate more butterflies. I don't know what that means, but it means something. I mentioned this the other day, but Owen and I stopped to get out the vehicle and look at a butterfly that I've never seen before, and it was one of the policemen's. And 5 meters away where the Nkuhuma's on a wildebeest kill. Then yesterday we stopped to admire a little blue butterfly. I didn't even get the ID because everything happened so fast, and I found piping hot tracks that took me to Kalamba. There's a lesson there. Okay, I'm going to keep bumbling south on Twin Dams Road and head to the hyena den. I wanted it today, but that's okay. Can't control the weather. But I am going to keep moving. I've got lots of things on my agenda today, especially if we have to do it before the rain. I always have this sort of thing where the first hour of drive, keep moving, especially when it's cooler, because that's when you're going to find mobile animals. And then when it starts to get hot, everything settles down, everything falls asleep. So to wrap up my story, I'm going to keep moving for now. Head straight to the hyena den, which I have a feeling will probably be empty, but it's worth checking. There have been 2 buffalo carcasses on the property, and I know for a fact the hyenas got in and finished the last one. So they could also be fat and flat at the den. Ugh, spiderwebs. We are about T-minus 2 minutes out from the den. Maybe even less than that, actually. And I'm really crossing all my fingers and toes that it's active. I'm gonna go through a dip. It'll take all of 2 seconds and then we'll be right back up again. And then just around the corner is where I want to be. Okay, wish me luck everyone. I'm very much hoping that I'm going to turn this corner and all the hyenas will be there.
Okay, so I've just arrived at Sydney's Dam. This is where the Talamatis were yesterday. We had some long distance views of them. And they were kind of relaxing to the right hand side of the dam. I have seen a little bit of movement in the grass, but it looks like it's actually vultures that are giving quite a bit of activity. And we'll show you just now where the carcass was. There is just a whole lot of flattened grass and stomach contents and nothing else. So this carcass was polished off during the night, absolutely finished. And there are hyena tracks all over the road, 1 or 2 lion tracks. But interestingly enough, also a leopard track. Looks like a female leopard. So we are just going to sit here for a little bit and see if we can hear anything, if we can see any movement other than that of the vultures. It is quite a beautiful morning to be sitting at the dam regardless. So I think there's definitely still some food somewhere. I'm wondering if somebody got a scrap just like yesterday and carried it towards the dam, because the vultures are actually still on the ground. So you can't really see the vultures. Every now and then we're just seeing them kind of fly up. So they're having a bit of a scuffle in the grass. And the grass is so long that you actually can't really see. Excuse me, sneezing this morning. Right, so there is actually a game viewer in the area. And they're possibly going to check what the vultures are up to. So the vultures are just in the long grass there. If we watch for a bit, patience is key. We might see them fly up because they are having a few interactions, and that's what's causing them to kind of panic a bit, and then they fly up and land again straight away. Kind of bounce away from whatever they're feeding on. There you go. A lot of white-backed vultures in particular. Michael Fleetwood, oh my word, that does sound cold. 12 degrees. Oh, well yes, hopefully we'll have some great sightings to warm you up. And if you haven't already got a cup, get a nice hot cup of tea or coffee or hot chocolate and sit and soak it in. I'm very grateful that it's not that cold here. It's probably low 20s here. So it's actually the perfect temperature. I'm not wearing a jacket, but it is nice and cool, and I don't think we'll get too sunburned today either. So it's definitely very, very quiet here, and what I'm thinking happened, just based on all of the tracks in the road, it looks like majority hyena tracks. So possibly what might have happened is one or two of the lionesses came back if they heard the commotion of the hyenas coming in. They maybe tried to defend the carcass a bit. But I think the hyenas in particular, the clan, actually had a really good meal, because I can't even see bones around here in the grass. There is nothing left of this carcass. So I'm thinking the hyenas had a really good feast. And then once it was finished, they moved off. And actually, I was saying to Owen as we were driving up here along the road, there were a lot of hyena tracks. And they were coming up the road and then back. We are going to try and just reposition a little bit here so that we can show you the flattened section of grass. I'm going to try and pull to the right because we've also got a vehicle that's coming to pass. You can kind of just see, there we go, you can't really see much. So that bush is where the buffalo carcass was, and it's just, look at the flattened grass, it's just a whole lot of flattened grass here. So this is where they dragged it underneath the bush, and there's pretty much nothing left. Even in terms of stomach contents, it's just flattened grass on the floor. It's not even, any of the organs or anything left. So I think everybody had a very good meal. Very, very, very good meal. So the hyenas would have come through, the lions might have tried to come back, and all of the tracks on the road suggest that the hyenas came up. And then when it was finished, they actually moved straight back down, possibly along the exact same path, because their tracks are on the same sections of the road in some places. And they probably would have split at some point and gone in slightly different directions, but it seems like a lot of the tracks were straight up and down Sandy Patch North and Vuyatela access. And then the fresh leopard track, it's a female leopard track, was directly on top of that. It was actually the freshest of all the tracks, so possibly moved sometime this morning, maybe Kara, the area that we're in. And so it's definitely quite interesting to see that they finished it so quickly. You can still hear flies if you listen carefully. So the flies would be attracted to the smell of the stomach contents and the moisture that might still be on the ground. But it's definitely nothing like it was last night because there's not nearly enough food. And so it really has quietened down a lot. Right, I'm going to reposition again so that we can have another look at the dam, and we just want to kind of keep watching for any signs of movement, because there could still be predators here. There could still be even a hyena or two close to the dam. So we just want to make sure that we're not missing anything in the long grass. Rain roof, it is a bit of a challenge. There we go. Okay, so we're going to sit here for quite a while and just see what happens, because you never know, maybe something is going to pop up in the next few minutes. And while we do that, we'll head over to Lauren, who's on a bumble.
It's very quiet on our side. The hyena ain't nada. But to be honest, I think I know exactly where the hyenas are, and that's, yeah, I didn't expect the Dane to be active. But I am gonna have to really keep my eye on Cheetah Cutline. She was much further up, but I also don't want to destroy any tracks as I drive, and I'm not gonna lie to you, all my eyesight struggles in this light. I can see tracks, but to actually pick out what they are, eyes are not so great. Working with a serious lack of light. But I don't want to see Kalamba's tracks here. It's far too far down south. Way too close to Gary, Maine. I think she's using Mamba, but let's see. I just have to go back to the point where we left her and see where they go from there. If they go into Torchwood, I might be heartbroken. But there are obviously 3 sets of tracks. A big one and 2 tiny little bouncy ones. But it's good that we spent time with them yesterday, and it was good that the lock was very controlled, and they will become more and more familiar with vehicles. I've got a passenger crossing the road. You see him, doggy? There we go. A good old Shongololo for the morning. It's actually really stressful driving around in summer because there are so many creatures on the road. The other day, Owen and I had to wait for a chameleon to pass, and this chameleon was black. It was the same color as a Shongololo. Black in color. It was not happy, and it wasn't because of us. I don't know, I think maybe something made it drop from its tree and it had to relocate. Then there's these guys, and there's an African land snail, giant land snail, tortoises, all sorts of insects, dung beetles. And it's stressful. You've constantly got to sort of Mario Kart yourself around every obstacle. Okay, we've gone back to the exact same side that we came from. We didn't cross the road after all, we changed our mind. I don't think Kalamba would go into Torchwood, but you never know. Did you get that, Dobby?
Looking at all those legs makes me...
Dina, you're saying looking at all of those legs makes you itchy. If you think about them crawling on you, absolutely. I picked one up the other day to rescue it, and it's actually, it tickles. It tickles more than anything. And it's actually quite beautiful the way that it's like a conveyor belt, all of these legs moving. Imagine coordinating all of those legs. I can barely stand on my own 2 feet sometimes. With terrible balance. Imagine coordinating all of those legs. Whew, I would not make a good Shongololo. don't think she'll have come this far down. Okay, everyone, my search for Kalamba tracks begins.
Okay, so we've repositioned a little bit and we're just watching the area of grass where the vultures have been coming up. And the other game viewer in the area has very kindly told us they have found the lions, and the lions are actually there. So we're hoping that we're going to see them pop up from the boundary. So it seems like the whole pride is there, including a male, and we're not sure which male it is. We haven't had a chance to have a look. But it sounds like they may have dragged the carcass all the way across and down that side. And so that's where the hyenas left. There was no food. The lions stole it back. So we're actually just going to be sitting here at the dam for a bit. We are going to listen to the bird calls, but also I'm hoping we might hear some commotion from the lions if we listen carefully. So let's just have a little bit of a silent moment where we can take in some of the sounds. Maybe we'll get lucky. No such luck yet on hearing any sounds of them feeding. We are a little bit far maybe for that, but it's worth a try. I think the longer we sit here, the more patience we have. We might see a few glimpses at some point. Hello, Egyptian goose. Welcome. Hopefully with patience we'll manage to show you the lion pride.
We are still on our mission, driving extremely slowly. I mean, to be honest, I haven't even seen an impala this morning. Maybe that's my eyesight, but it's eerily quiet. Okay, it's looking good so far in terms of she hasn't come too far south. That's good news. Now we just need to determine east or west, and that's going to be the answer. But it was funny seeing, I'm sure it was a boy, I could be wrong. It was funny seeing the boy put his head into the bushes and start behaving like a leopard. Naturally, leopards put their head into the vegetation and what they're trying to do. I'm sure it feels good. I'm sure it's a real sensory experience for them as well. It stimulates them, but they're also trying to sort of rub that sebum that comes off the sebaceous glands from the whiskers, that area, into the vegetation. It's a form of scent marking. But I also think it feels great. I think there's a lot of pleasure in it for them. But that's what the little cub was doing yesterday, one of them. And it was so sweet to see that, to see a small thing show adult behavior. Probably just copied mum. It was very sweet. I don't think we were live at this point, but Kalamba went to the toilet. And immediately the little cub also squatted like her, but didn't do the toilet. And what was happening there was she didn't need the toilet, obviously. And she was just copying mum. Mum was squatting, so I'm going to squat. Although it was very smelly and not so pleasant, it was also very heartwarming to watch that. Oh, she doesn't let them out of her sight though, and every few minutes she just looks at the vehicle just to check where we are. dark mane lover.
That's how green it is.
You love how green it is. It is so green. And you know, I don't think summer is at its peak. It's got a long way to go. Okay, we've hit our first road, Mamba. And this is where I'm thinking she may have headed. So I'm going to need to really stop here, probably get out the vehicle, just spend some time looking at the ground. Okay, everyone, I'm gonna hop out. I won't have comms though. I think my cameraman has stolen my radio. Just a quick check. The ground is messy, but you would be able to pick out fresh leopard tracks. Negative. Okay, this is also good news. Well, it's good news that she didn't go this way. I'm now trespassing by a meter or so. Don't tell anyone. No, only the Misi. Alrighty. I'm gonna have to get out on track in just a bit, FC. Get my cameraman in the driver's seat. Okay, I am going to jump out and just check this stretch, because just up ahead is where we left her. And we're going to send you guys to Tessa, who's still at Sydney's Dam.
Okay, so for myself and Owen this morning, it is definitely going to be a game of patience, and that is absolutely fine for now. We are hoping for a glimpse of the lions that are down in the dip. We have solid confirmation that they are there. We just cannot see them from the boundary. You can see there is a game viewer, and they have told us the lions are there. It's a bit of a tricky situation because we are in the boundary, so we can't actually go onto the property. So we've got to sit here and hope that we get a glimpse of them. But it is at least a beautiful view. It's a beautiful morning. And no rain yet. So we have got quite a bit of bird activity around the dam. Egyptian geese and so on. And it seems like it might be a very good birding day today. Because it's not windy as much as it's cool. It's not windy. And so that means it is going to be a little bit better. You can see the vultures in the tree. Unfortunately, the bar is right in front of them, so I'll try and reposition for you just now. But there's definitely still quite a bit of activity around, and we can definitely still smell this buffalo carcass where it was. So I think what might have happened was the lions will have, or the hyenas would have come to feed during the night and open the stomach contents first, because the stomach contents are still here. And then the lions decided, nope, they want to move it. And so they've actually dragged it down towards the side of the dam. I believe there is still some of the carcass left. And they are feeding next to the dam somewhere. So we've been trying to listen while we've been sitting here. We can't hear any sounds of them feeding. It's a bit far and it's in the dip. So the sound will travel towards the dam instead of towards us. But hopefully, if we play our cards right this morning, we might get lucky. It sounds like they're just on the other side of that dip where you can see the long grass and then all of those dead logs. They're somewhere in between the long grass and the dead logs, down in a dip there. Mila, no, lions will actually stay in an area for a few different reasons. One of them would be really good den sites. So if it's lionesses with young cubs, they'll stay in an area wherever they've hidden the cubs in the den site. Can also be for mating purposes. So a male and a female will stay in an area as long as it takes them to mate. And that's usually anywhere between 2 and 5 days. So they might stay in the area for that. But as well, if they have eaten recently, even if there's no food left, if they can find a place where there's decent water and cover, what they'll actually do is they'll stay in that area until they feel the need that they should move, in which case then they will. But it actually depends lion to lion. Some are more nomadic than others. And it's the same with leopards. Some are much more nomadic and some are strictly more territorial and stick within their home range a lot. So this particular area, I mean, because they had a meal yesterday and now they're having another meal overnight, I think when they're done feeding here, they are going to have eaten themselves into a bit of a rounded stupor. I think they are going to be here for a few days next to the waterhole, or close by at least, where there's nice shade, there's decent water, and they can start working off all of that meat. So much protein to digest, and it really does take a lot of energy. And so until they've cooled off enough and have digested enough that they can confidently move quite far without using too much energy and taking too much energy away from digestion, then they'll move. So I'm actually not sure of the total pride count here, or which male it is. We know that the male is there. We know that the pride is there. But we're not 100% sure of the makeup, so we don't know which male it is. Kimberly, we're actually not sure which male lion is there, so we know that there is a male lion. There was a brief glimpse of him yesterday by Lauren and Owen, but very far away on the other side of that dam wall, basically. And so it wasn't a clear enough for you to be able to say which male it is. In the area that we're in, it could be dark mane, but it also could be the S8 or the Mbali male that might have come and joined the pride when he heard the commotion of the buffaloes. So we're unfortunately unable to give an update on that at this point, but if we do figure it out, we will definitely let you know. At this stage, I feel like, the male would have eaten first, would have eaten the most, and so if anything, he would be the last one to get up. So he might be the last lion that we see. But maybe they'll challenge me today, maybe they'll mix it up a little bit, and the male will get up first and go and have some water or something. I can still see the odd vulture flying out from kind of the thickets to the right. So I'm thinking, since there were quite a lot of vultures on the floor when we actually arrived, maybe they've got a few scraps that they're still feeding on, and the lions are off with the main carcass to the side. Oh, yes, I'm also hoping, everybody. I know you're all excited to see the lions. So am I. Yesterday I just saw a brief glimpse of 2 of the lionesses, and so it's really nice to be able to hopefully see the whole pride and how many individuals, what the makeup is. It can be very valuable, but also it's nice to just have an update on them. So I do hope that we manage to get a sighting. So far it's just been the vultures flying up and down, and I think there's a combination going on at the moment. I think the vultures are feeding on something because they're on the ground. We haven't seen them fly off and stay off. They fly and land again, which means they are feeding on something fairly confidently. And I think the reason they're doing that is because the other lions, or the pride, they are distracted by eating on the main part of the carcass. So possibly the vultures have got a scrap and they're fighting over it. And they're confident the lions aren't going to chase them because the lions are too distracted by the fact that they are competing amongst themselves for the rest of the carcass. So hopefully that means that we might see a little bit of action just now, because if they'd already stopped feeding and they were already fast asleep... Oh, is that a lion, Odie? On the right of that guarri bush? Not the left one? Yeah, that one. Did we just get a glimpse of a lion? Yes! Oh my goodness. Hello. I was just about to say, if they've already stopped feeding and start sleeping, we might not see them for a while, but now I'm happy. At least we've got a brief view of one. Oh, where are you going, girl? Oh, straight behind the thickets. Tough crowd. Tough morning to get the lions out. Okay, so at least we kind of know more or less where she came from, which means the rest of them will be somewhere close by there now. And I'm going to keep watching as wide as I can, because you never know where they're going to pop up. If there are quite a few individuals, they tend to split up a bit while they're feeding. Okay, I'm definitely going to try and reposition a little bit now and see if we can narrow down and hopefully get another view of some of those lionesses. Wish me luck.
We've just stopped to sit and listen for a while. We stopped yesterday for a butterfly and it all fell into place. We found what we were looking for. So sometimes it really does pay to stop. You might even hear sawing or roaring or whooping. You might also hear an alarm call where the impala spotted exactly what you were looking for. So we're just going to sit here for a moment or two and listen to the sounds of the bush. Even if you don't hear what it is you're actually trying to listen to, you can just hear the most wonderful sounds. All the birds waking up in the morning and just the bush felt generally coming alive.
It is nail-biting stuff over here, folks. We are still looking. Oh, there's a lion, Odie, at the dam. We're still looking at grass, and we've just spotted another lioness. Going to the bathroom.
Morning constitutional.
The mandatory bathroom break after you've been lying down and feeding. And it looks like the lions are slowly starting to get active, so the little bit of patience has paid off. And now we've only seen 2 lionesses. This is not the same one we saw earlier as far as I can tell, because this one did not come from where she disappeared, unless they leopard crawled through the dip, which I highly doubt. They're going to have a drink. Look at that tail so high up in the air. Very communicative this morning. Definitely chasing some flies, but also being out in the open. That lioness with her tail up is saying, I know I've been seen. It's all right. Everybody knows I'm here and I'm not here to cause trouble. Yeah, not even drinking, just going straight back. So you can see why it's so tough for us to see them. We can only see her back moving when she moves more towards the dip. Manita, I certainly hope it keeps paying off. Patience is key out here, but look at how quickly she disappeared. If you drove past here and you had no idea there were lions there, you might miss a great sighting because you just can't see them. You can see how long that grass is, so maybe it could have been the same lioness. I don't think so, they look different, but they're so far away that it's quite tough for us to tell. But that grass is incredibly long, so every now and then we're just seeing like a glimpse, a pop of a lion here and there. So all we really need now is for the male to get up and move so that we can see who it is. And hopefully the whole pride actually ends up moving towards the dam. Once they're finished feeding, they won't necessarily stick around the carcass for too long. They might move off a little bit because the flies will be attracted to the carcass and then they'll be attracted to the lions as well. And that can be quite frustrating. You can imagine, having insects constantly flying around your face. One is enough for humans to make everybody panic a little bit. And so I'm sure for the lions it must be very frustrating. Also bear in mind, from feeding they're also going to have bits of blood and a lot of fluid on their faces. And so that will also attract the flies. So I'm sure as soon as they're done feeding they are going to move. I mean, that being said, we don't know how much is left of the carcass, so we don't know how long that'll take. So we kind of just got to keep scanning because the grass is so long and that dip is very deceiving. It looks flat from here, but there's quite a dip on the other side of that long grass. As you could tell with that lioness, she just disappeared. And it's not as though she was leopard crawling. She was walking straight. And she just disappeared. So we've got to kind of keep scanning. So we're just taking kind of our eyes, we're just moving left to right a little bit every now and then, just making sure we're not missing a lioness anyway. It's quite tough. Hello. Good morning. Yeah, they've definitely eaten a decent meal. Look at that belly. Right, so it does look like it's still got quite a bit of blood on the face. You can see that discoloration. So I'm pretty sure that lion has come almost straight from the carcass because once they're done feeding, they start grooming almost straight away, trying to get rid of all of that blood. Wow. Okay, another mandatory bathroom break going on. And I wouldn't be surprised if it disappears behind that quarry to the right as well, because that's where the first lioness went. Maybe they're going to go and sleep underneath that quarry, just a little bit away from the rest of the pride that's still feeding. Oh no, changing it up. You can never predict what they're going to do. And just like that, it's disappeared again. So when you're having a sighting like this, you can imagine it can be quite challenging for us because we're trying to get a full picture of how many lions are here, which lions they might be, if they are recognizable individuals, whether there's any of the sub-adults here, which male it is. And when you're just seeing one lioness at a time come out and disappear, it's very tough for us to get a bigger picture of what's happening because from this distance, even with binoculars, I can't see as close as the camera can, but even through the camera, it's very difficult for us to pick up characteristics out here. I think it can be quite a bit easier when you're actually looking at the playback and you can zoom in and everything like that. But where we are, it's quite tough for us to get an overall picture at the moment because we're just seeing flashes of one lioness here, one lioness there. So it's quite tough for us to piece together the puzzle of who is in the pride at the moment. But it is certainly quite entertaining because, we're sitting and we're watching, and every now and then you just catch the movement. And because it pops up so suddenly with the long grass, all of a sudden there's just a line where there wasn't one, and then it just disappears like a magic trick. And this is exactly why, if you're looking at a scene like this is exactly why when you're on safari, you've got such a high chance of missing so many things. There is a whole pride of lions there, and all you can see is grass. So you drive past the dam, have a look around, scan with your binoculars. There's nothing here, and carry on. And so you've really got to be quite in tune to looking at everything. You've got to be looking for the tracks, listening for the sounds. Even the vultures, there's a whole flock of vultures there somewhere. It's actually a venue, it's not a flock, a venue of vultures on the floor. And we would have no idea. But, looking at the tracks in the road, the amount of hyena tracking and activity that there's been, you can see the tracks clearly on the road, you can see the lion tracks further on. That would be what we'd be looking for, to give it a good few minutes of scanning here before we just moved off. And speaking of all the different hyena tracks and the lion tracks in the road, I think Lauren is actually tracking at the moment, so we can head over to her and see what she is busy tracking.
Now we've got to really where we wanted to be. Luckily, no one's driven cheetah cut line this morning. Thank goodness. And look at this. This is just adorable. You've got big mummy tracks. And then you got little tracks. Mummy track. Tiny little tracks. My goodness. And the ground it's actually perfect to see them. They go all the way this way. Now, I'm a little bit confused, and I'm not going to lie to you, because this is not where we had her yesterday. It was going in the same direction. She was always going south. But we had her coming out from central, going south. So I'm a little bit confused as to why they're above central, coming south. I think she's just walked up and down cheetah cut line. Up and down, up and down. She's taken them on a bit of a detour. This is exactly to the T where we had her. We had her right here, milling around. So I think it's just a case of let's try and bumble the roads that we know she uses and see if we can pick up on exactly where she's cut in. Miss Lalamba will be somewhere on the eastern slice. But as I mentioned earlier, we won't gundabash, if you like, with the rain roof on. But I'm sure she's taken them to a kill. The last kill she took them to, that we had her at on, I think, the 4th of January, it wasn't hoisted. It was, in fact, on the ground, which wasn't ideal because naturally 2 hyenas came and stole it. It wasn't Gwazi and Comet. Yes, and Gwazi and Comet stole it. So it's really not ideal, especially for tiny little cubs. They are small to be on the ground. So I think Kalamba really needs to hoist. They can climb trees, my goodness. These little things were up the trees yesterday. I could not believe my eyes. And they were running across the road, jumping up the tree, jumping down, catching up with Mum. It was really quite unbelievable. But of course, they're arboreal at the end of the day, so they will learn how to live in trees very, very quickly.
popped it up.
The antenna fell down. It hit a tree. The vegetation is just so thick right now that it whacks our antenna sometimes. Okay, I do welcome all your questions. So this is going to be a day for very much figuring out where they have gone and looking at the ground. There doesn't appear to be much else. So I really hope we'll be able to locate them soon.
Still playing our game of patience. And scanning as we watch. We've had no more activity in the last few minutes, so everybody's settling down again. You can see some of the vultures are starting to come and land. I think there are still a few on the ground there. But let's just have a listen, maybe. I mean, there's some beautiful bird calls happening regardless, but maybe we'll be lucky and hear commotion. There are definitely more vultures coming to join the party, flying over and evaluating. Yeah, all I can hear really is the birds calling. I think the vultures in particular, I mean, we can hear birds flying over every now and then. But the vultures in particular are making quite a lot more movements in the lines at this point. But interesting to see that they are so close to where those lionesses popped up.
Even when you're tracking, you can come across the most wonderful finds. Good morning. Look at their tusks. I love the sounds. Excuse our rain pole. It gets in the way of every single sighting. We had elephants at Buffelshoek Dam yesterday, which was wonderful. No longer the dam of nothing. It is the dam of something. Elephants. I don't see any more. Let's see if we can catch up with them. I can smell them. How's this, Dobby? Perfect, I see. Did you get that name, Dobby?
Nilo.
Nilo. anywhere between about 12 to 15. As soon as they hit those sort of teenage puberty years, it can happen as early as 12, but it goes up to about 15. But it's really situational dependent. That's sort of the average age bracket. Once they start misbehaving and their testosterone levels get too high, the female's behavior towards that male starts to change. And although it seems actually quite brutal to us, to be honest, this male has been part of the herd his entire life, and all of a sudden the females are almost saying, go, go, go. And it's a natural process of things. He has to go. He has to go and live a nomadic life. He can't be with the herd. He's a danger to the young calves. He will, of course, come into must and become quite big and boisterous. Okay, let me see if I can just move forward. And even intentionally hurt a calf, but remember the physiological and hormonal changes that elephant is going through is really quite severe. This might be our last sort of semi-decent visual of him. His testosterone can rise up to 60 times the pre-puberty amount. 60 times, that's crazy. So lots of things are happening to him that he probably has to take a little bit of time to get used to, similar with humans. And his temporal glands start to really, really swell in his head. And they're at the side of the head where our temples are. And it's almost throbs. This can also be quite painful for him. So he's got a lot to deal with. Starts leaking urine. He starts smelling differently. His feelings will be different. And it's just basically time to get him out the herd. And males also do play a huge role in elephant society. It's not just the matriarch, but the older bulls play a huge role as well. So when the bull does leave the herd, he'll either join up with other bulls and be sort of bachelors and wrestle and do what boys do, or they'll be completely nomadic or join up with a much, much older bull. The older bull's purpose is to teach the younger bulls how to be a bull. And they will hang out together. It's a really beautiful association, and the younger bulls will protect the older bull. It's beautiful. But it's normally they start to leave. Wendy likes to scare me. But normally they sort of start to leave about 12 to 15 years. But it's a process. The adult's behavior will change, and the bull's got to understand that he might leave and then come back again and leave and come back again. It's not simple one day they just leave. We're just going to see if we can pick anything up on the roads now. Saturn. Do females ever fight to be matriarch, correct? We're struggling a little bit this morning. No, they do not. Not really. The matriarch sort of arises quite naturally. And there can be cases where, sorry, I just want to take it really easy here. This is where we found Kalamba yesterday, so just bear with me. There have been cases where females will not get on. They will not agree with Kalamba, the cubs. They're back at the den site. Sorry everyone, I couldn't concentrate on that question. Davi, on your last day here at Juma before you leave to Pridelands, are you happy? I think this is Kalamba. It's way too big to be a cub. That's why I was so confused. I was on Cheetah Cut Line thinking, why am I so confused right now? Why are the tracks going one way and then coming back another way? I was really confused. I think that's her. This is exactly where we had her yesterday. I really could not get my head around why the tracks were going in the opposite direction from where I saw them go yesterday. It's not the best views, but let's just sit tight and try and figure out what's happening. But this is the tree that the cubs were bouncing on yesterday, like little bouncy balls. Yes, so there's Tlalamba. Hello, Mummy. Ravi's here to see you. Oh, she sees something. What does she see? Oh, she hears something. Okay, so this is official that this is a new den site then, which is good news because it needs to be managed well. She's off to hunt something. She's left the cubs there. She's literally hanging out in a tree with the cubs. Just let me navigate this because there are two cubs somewhere. But now I'm not going to call this den in because Tlalamba's currently no longer there. Hello, beautiful. What happened there? What did you see? She's chuffing. She's chuffing. I don't know if you can hear that sound. Chuffing is quite a low contact call between her and cubs only. Oh, Tlalamba. Maybe if you're happy. Oh. The cubs are here, they're just not responding to her. Because I wasn't sure yesterday if this was a den site that she was utilizing or if it was just a sort of chill spot. Ah, they're here. Davy, I got the cups for you. They're here. Hello. Good morning. I'm not going to cry today, everybody. I got a bit of emotional yesterday, but I'm not going to do that to you all today. Don't worry. I won't put you through that. It's a really beautiful sound. What's so beautiful is the way she constantly guides them. She's constantly communicating with them, guiding them. The other one's coming. I can see branches moving. Let's bear with her. I can't believe we cooked galamba and cubs 2 days in a row. Here we go. Bouncy, 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 bouncy. This is why all the boring tracking segments are worth it. If you rush tracking, you just miss vital clues. Why, Keisha, you're saying this is fantastic. I know. I'm on day number 17 of my stint and only seen them once. She's been a tricky leopard to deal with, but naturally it's been raining, so she's also been dealing with environmental conditions and making sure they are not in magpie strikes. Making sure they are not in a drainage line that's too deep to get waterlogged, keeping them safe, feeding them, hunting. She's taken them back to the den, I think, exactly where we found them yesterday. I just don't want to turn on my engine just yet. Have you seen her move further? Okay, Dobby's seen she's gone. Yep, she's taken them right back to the den. She saw something. She was going to hunt, and then so this is a den site, and it is probably the most fantastic den site I've ever seen. So I'm just going to navigate this very, very carefully, and hopefully we're going to have some more views of Tlalamba and her bambinos.
So we are watching to see if the lions are going to pop up again, and it seems like some impalas are watching all of the commotion, so they can definitely see a lot more than we can. But they're pretty close by and very relaxed if you consider it. They're looking alert, but yeah, definitely looking fairly relaxed. I think they know the lions have eaten so much they won't come and chase them. Also, they're in an open area, so if they can see the lions, there's no chance the lions can sneak up on them. We haven't had any more activity from any lions that we can see. But it is quite a beautiful morning here. It's a very pleasant temperature. No rain yet. But nice and overcast still. And so we're hoping it actually stays like this for the day, because then we might have some very interesting sightings if they do start moving. Ah, there the impalas are starting to walk off. They're looking very relaxed considering. So the herd actually split. Those three are fairly close to the lions. The rest of the herd actually came back this way and they've crossed back over the road. And they were also looking very relaxed. I don't know if the rest of the herd actually knew that the lions were around, because they came from the thickets and just kept walking, didn't look back, didn't look alert at all. But those three going the opposite direction, definitely looking like they know the lions are there. I wonder what will happen here throughout the day. I'm sure there must also be hyenas, but we just can't see them. Maybe lying in the long grass waiting for some scraps. We'll see what happens. So we are definitely enjoying the fact that it is nice and cool today. I think the roof also would have helped anyway if it was sunny, but then we wouldn't have had it on, specifically for the rain. We're just kind of doing a bit of panning around the dam at the moment. Because we haven't seen any more activity from the lions, we are just still scanning. Because that grass is so long, you don't want to miss one. And they do just seem to be popping up every now and then. I'm wondering if because it's getting a bit later in the morning, maybe the lions are starting to settle a bit. And so we haven't really seen much activity in the last while. Since that last lioness popped up and walked around a bit, we haven't actually seen any more action other than impalas walking through. I wonder if in winter, because obviously in summer there's a lot of water, but also it's very lush, it's very green, very tall grass. I wonder if in winter we would have been able to see them clearly where they are now. Because remember, there wouldn't be nearly as much grass. The grass would be dry and it would be quite a bit shorter, would have been grazed. Possibly some of the lionesses under those gories we would have been able to see. Because that seems like it's a bit higher up than where the rest of the pride is. I have a sneaking suspicion the rest of the pride is actually in the very short grass, but just behind this long grass, where the quarries are actually on the line where it kind of fades from long to short. And so we might have been able to see them. But it also just goes to show why it is easier to spot animals in winter. In summer, driving past, you wouldn't know any differently, but in winter, you might actually pick up on some of the tail flicking and things like that and have a chance of spotting them from a distance. The distance from here to where those guarri bushes are, where we know the lionesses have kind of settled a bit, is probably 200 meters, hey Owen? About that? Yeah, about 200 meters or so. So it's quite a long distance view. But I feel like if the grass was shorter, you would still see some of the tail flicking because there must be many, many flies around. But we are going to sit here. We're patiently waiting through all of this riveting action from the grass. We'll send you back over to Lauren, who has found Tlalamba again.
Sadly, that was not quick enough. She has gone into the thicket, into the drainage. It's time to get active. She's probably been sitting there the whole day. The whole morning, sorry. It's still cool. She saw something, she jumps up, she wanted to hunt. It didn't quite work out, and she's just taking them on a mission. But naturally, you can see how thick it is. So we will not, absolutely not follow for so many reasons. But it is the same drainage system as Quarry Pan drainage, where she originally was. I don't know whether we should just sit by Quarry Pan for a little while, see if they come out. But at least we got to see them. Darby got to see them. And you guys got to see them. But it's good to know she's using that spot. It's a very, very nice little spot. But sadly, those were the last views of her bumbling into the bush. I got such a shock. Maybe we should have came here first. I just assumed that go to the last tracks. Figure out where she went from the last tracks, and all she did was come right back here. But it's really beautiful how she calls them when the vehicle is there. If she really, really didn't want anyone to see her cub, she wouldn't chuff like that. But it's so good to know she's using it. And this is it. It's the most stunning den site I think I've ever seen. This is the den site. She keeps them stashed in that little tree. Lots of shade, cool spots. It's so beautiful. Bob? Thank you, Bob. Very kind of you. Oh, I don't actually know. I was trying to answer that elephant question. I just was not concentrating on it very well. Sorry. Can't even remember what it was now. I just knew that something was happening in the area and something just caught my attention. And this is it. But naturally, I won't be calling it in. There's no sighting anymore. I think she's just been chilling with them all morning. She's really, really getting mobile with them now. Very mobile with them. Taking them to kills, taking them up trees. What a morning. Michelle, you're asking, are the cubs old enough to sleep in a tree? I don't know if there's an age limit to when you learn to sleep in a tree. I think as soon as they have the ability to climb a tree, they can sleep in a tree. Yesterday they were in that tree. Owen and I had no visual. We could just see the branches going point, point, point. They're jumping from branch to branch to branch. And I think as soon as they're old enough to have the ability to be stable in a tree, I'm just going to drive really slowly, although they did go that way, then they can sleep there, have a rest there. So absolutely old enough, 100%. I think they just love trees right now. And it's a good thing because that is, as a small little vulnerable cub, they are relying so heavily on mom right now that the tree could be their safety. Hyenas can't get up trees, they want to. Hyenas want to be able to climb trees. It's their biggest dream, but they can't. So if a hyena does come along, they can just scuttle up a tree and they would be safe. If another leopard or lion comes along, that's a different story. But that's their safety. Dogs can't climb trees. It was a quick sighting, but still, it's just nice to know where she's moving. And this is a road that I've been checking every single day, and it's funny because I don't actually like this road. Goripan Road, I don't know why. I've never enjoyed driving it. Don't really have a reason. Not really had many sightings on it, and that's probably why Tlalamba uses it. It's not well trafficked. And I just have to say, I'm so glad she didn't go south to Gary Mead. My heart would have been in my mouth, and I'm also glad she didn't go to Torchwood. Sorry, Torchwood. But I think, there's a huge drainage system. It's massive. And from the den that I think Darby, you and Jonty originally saw them at, to the Goripan den that we know of, that Tandy's used for years, to this den, it's all part of the same system. And I really think they've just used different spots along the drainage. And we just have to be lucky enough to be there at the right time. So I don't know if we're going to see her again, but overall, that was amazing. And I believe Tessa's got a better view of her lions.
Okay, so we've tried every possible gap where we can kind of see across to the dam. You can see some of the white-backed vultures in the foreground here on that dead tree. And they are watching over, and we found a really minuscule gap where we can see the top of a lioness's head and another one lying to her right. You can see the white on the side of the belly. And so it looks like they're actually just very close to the water's edge, but in such a deep dip that we're literally fighting through brush at the moment to get a view. We're now much, much, much further away than we were, but we're on the opposite crest. So we were on a crest, we went through a bit of a dip where they were yesterday. They were in the dip, almost on the road, and now we're on the other side of the crest, on the western side. And there you can just see a little bit of movement. So It's not a great view, but at least we can see them. We can still only see those two. We can't see the rest of the pride from where we're sitting, but we are hoping that because we can see those two, maybe some others will come over or these ones will get up. So we want to spend a few minutes here before we go, because we're actually going to go and bumble and come back and see if maybe they've moved at all as it's getting hotter. But I mean, how well camouflaged are those lionesses? Trying our best to find all the little gaps in the brush and looking through as much as possible. So they definitely are in the shorter grass section. So that's the long grass that we were seeing. We were on the other side, on the right-hand side. And we're trying to look over that grass to try and see the lines where they're lying. And coming around and changing the angle a bit, at least we found a small gap. Pedro, I'm not sure if there are any lion cubs here. I don't think there were any here yesterday when Owen and Lauren were here. But we haven't had a clear view of the pride, so we actually don't know the composition or the makeup at all. We're not sure how many lionesses, how many sub-adults, which male. All we know is that it is the Talamati pride. And from what I can gather, I think it's just a few lionesses, possibly a few sub-adults and one male. So we're trying our best to get a view of the whole pride together. But at this point, it doesn't seem like there are any cubs. That being said, I mean, there might be. When I was here last, none of the Talamatis had cubs. But you never know. Never say never. But it is quite incredible how well these cats blend in, because we thought we had quite a clear view across, and still you struggle to find them. So the angle that we're at, to give you an idea, we're actually looking completely out the back right-hand side of Rusty. So we're having to look back and to the right to see those lines. There you can see that's the back corner of our rain roof. So that's the angle that we're working with at the moment. It's the only gap we could find where we could see a smidgen of a lion anywhere in the frame. But I think what we're going to do, we're actually going to carry on and see what else we can find. And we'll come back and check again later, see if they might be a little bit more active or maybe a bit more in the open.
We are just sitting here hoping that a leopardess and cubs, Miss Kalamba, pops out. Bushi, I don't know. But it's also peaceful, it's also nice to listen. There's really not much else going on in the reserve at all, other than the lions and Kalamba. So we're just gonna sit here. She might be taking them on a stroll, she might be taking them for water. Who knows? So I think we're just going to sit here together for a moment or two and just listen to all the sounds. Isn't it lovely to just sit and listen? Sadly, no sign of the leopardess yet, but she might appear. No signs of movement just yet. I'm going to pop up to Quarry Pan in case they're coming for a big delicious drink. Imagine that. I just want to give you some context. So, Juma, as always. This is Quarry Pan. We're now at Quarry Pan. So, the Den side is north of Central, south of Quarry Pan. It's actually on Drakensberg. And I would say it's maybe about here. The old Den site that Tandy had Maribs and Kalamba was also using is just behind Quarry Pan in the drainage. Now you see this blue line, it doesn't necessarily mean there is water, it's just representing a riverine system. So these are the drainage lines, and this is a huge system that she's using. So the one that I think Jonty and Davi found her at was accessible from Central, but it's a much longer sort of way to get there. And it was also accessible from Quarry Pan Road. So she was first sort of found here. Then she was also using this one. And then now she's using this one. So if you think about it, she's using the same sort of drainage line. And it's huge. I know maybe size isn't sort of conveyed when you look at a map. But it really, really is a huge drainage system. So basically she could be anywhere here, but we are just going to go up to Quarry Pan. You never know. Like I always say, patience really pays off. I've had a few quiet drives just looking and looking for Kalamba, but now that I really know where she's moving and she's taking them, she's not going to take them too far. Unless there are lions around, then she'll move, but she's not going to really go terribly far from this area. It's quiet in the eastern sector. Tandy's not using it. Shadulu definitely doesn't use it. It's really Kalambas. I like to call it the eastern slice. And this is Quarry Pan. And it's really not that exciting, but that's where we had tracks. If you just remember a few days ago, we had, Davi and I did a lovely segment on the tracks, and you could see where the cubs had come down to drink and they'd also slid into the water because it's slidey. The edge of the water is muddy and they've gone woo into the water. This is it. This is Quarry Pan. So there's absolutely no guarantee that she's going to pop out here, but she also might. I think we will just give it maybe 10 minutes or so, and then if she really doesn't, we'll just bumble on. I would never bundabash like that after cubs. Especially in a thick area. Maybe across quarantine you can because it's so open and there's really not much. Nothing obstructing your view, really. But not in this drainage system. Ah, there's a weaver, Davi. I forgot the weavers came to this tree. Do you see up here? Just at about 9 o'clock in this tree. Here, where my finger is. I forgot weavers used this tree. I wonder if this is a start. Is he building a nest? I think so. I think he's getting ready to start building. It's either a village, a southern mass, or the lesser mass. That's the ones we normally get here. Nina, you're asking, would a leopard move her cubs at night? Yes. She moved at night last night with them. And when we spent the days looking for Tandy and Mareeps, I wonder how many hours I've actually spent looking for leopard and cubs. Probably a lot. James and I looping round and round, and she moved them into Torchwood. That was so unfortunate. We missed a big chunk of Mareeb's development. Luckily, he's around now. But when they were on Torchwood, Torchwood is a private property, and the landowner has actually got a what do you call them? Camera trap at the dam. And it obviously flashes every time there's movement. And he caught Kalamba getting mobile with both cubs, I'm sure. I'm sure it's a photo of both cubs at the time before she lost one, moving at night time. So yes, they do. But Kalamba's just been such a fantastic mom. Maybe she did take them to get a little bit of food. I really don't know. Once it becomes a negative lock at night time, you just don't. But I was really confused on Cheetah Cut Line. I said to Davi, I don't understand. Am I looking at different... What's happening here? And of course it was because they doubled back on themselves and came back the exact same route. So whether she did take them into the block, they had a little bit of food, and then she brought them right back again. And there they were at the downside. I just should have came here first. But that's okay. Any view is better than no view. And it's just good to know she's still using this drainage line. But of course, water is everywhere now. I mean, Quarry Pan's full and it's beautiful and it's delicious, I think. But in the drainage line, there'll be all sorts of puddles and pans and natural little spaces that fill up with water. So she could be anywhere. They don't need to come here for water. It's just, we also just may as well check this area. I have to say I'm not getting lucky with an active hyena drain, but I am for sure getting lucky with Tlalamba. I wonder if it's one or just bumbling Central. She might be taking him on a stroll again. Kevin, why would you think the weavers would build over water? What could possibly be the reason? There are multiple reasons. They don't always build over water, I must say, but generally speaking, that's the ideal. And it's the ideal because it's not very accessible to terrestrial predators. If it's over water like that, sort of terrestrial predators are going to struggle to get up. Okay, avian predators are a little bit different because they're going to be able to fly and swoop in. But generally speaking, it keeps them out of reach of any sort of predator who wants to come and eat the eggs or eat the chicks. It's also hard for bigger birds of prey to balance on those tiny little nests as well. They are quite inaccessible, and they're even more inaccessible being above water. Safety. But also, I mean, I guess around the water body, there's lots of really malleable vegetation, if you like. The grass is rich, it's moist, it's probably really easy to weave. And it's plentiful, so the weavers can sort of just fly around picking up that best blade of grass for their nest. That's probably a factor, but they don't always build over water. You do see some trees filled with weaver nests that are not over water, but that's not the ideal. When it is over water like this, really, really keeps them safe. Okay, I think we are going to just bumble down Central and see what else we can find.
So we've left the lions for now. We just want to bumble around a bit and see what we can find, because we had tracks of a female leopard. And in the road, I've just seen some leopard scat. So we were wondering if she'd maybe crossed back this way, because when we were tracking, the tracks were going straight towards the lions, and then the tracks turned around and came back. So I think she realized this is not for me. I've walked into something where I really shouldn't get much closer. And now there is some leopard scat on the road. It does still look quite fresh, and the leopard tracks are on top of the hyena tracks, which means this leopard was moving this morning. In this area, possibly Kara. And it looks like crossed towards Triple M, towards the western boundary. Very interesting. So, we might have to do a little bit of a loop and go and check the boundary on that side. this is actually the last place I saw Kara, so it's definitely part of her territory, although it could be a leopard like Shidulu as well. You never know. But the tracks have gone that way. There's a game park that leads off that way, and Triple M is not far from here. It's just on the other side of the brush, so I think I must make my way around there and have a look. We might find a leopard in amongst a lion surge, or a lion break, I should say. Yeah, so it looks like she's actually done a bit of a loop up towards the northern boundary and then back towards the western boundary. Where is she now? It's the perfect morning for a leopard to still be out and about moving. And the hyena tracks. It actually looks like there might have been some more buffaloes that came into a lot of buffalo tracks. Alright, so I'm just taking it nice and slow as I'm driving towards Sandy Patch. So we're approaching the area where we actually saw the female leopard track on top of the hyena tracks going straight north towards the boundary, up where the lions are. We've taken a little break from them just to go back later and check, but we wanted to come check on the leopard tracks, and I'm very happy that we have, because it seems like she's done a bit of a loop. She went up, turned around, and now she's come back. She's crossed over the road. I've just found her scat and crossed towards Triple M, the western boundary. So I want to go around and have a look on that side. Hello impalas, good morning. So we've got a whole nursery herd of impalas that are looking very relaxed here this morning. And this is the same herd that I saw a glimpse of this morning. They must have slept at Sandy Patch last night. So they're in quite a predator active area at the moment. The lions are not far. The hyenas have been moving through all night. And there's fresh leopard tracks on top of the hyena tracks. She actually did a bit of a loop through this area. So very, very interesting to see that the impalas are so relaxed. Bit of a tough view because they're in one of the only thickets around Sandy Patch. But possibly just looking for a nice, relaxing, safe, sheltered spot. There is quite a large herd of impalas, and the nursery herd in particular is quite big. Grace, so impalas can definitely kick, and their weapon when they're kicking is actually their hooves. Their hooves are quite sharp, so you definitely don't want to receive a kick from an impala. It can injure you, it'll cut through your flesh if they kick you hard enough, but it's not a particularly strong kicking force like you could compare to something like a zebra. Because their legs are so much thinner, their main defense is speed instead of impact. So their defense mechanism, they would rather get out of the area altogether and have their strength in numbers, lots of eyes, lots of ears, lots of noses, and then of course alarm calling if they do see something, as opposed to something like a zebra, which would actually stand its ground against something like wild dogs and actually chase the wild dogs. You know, it's quite a different structure in terms of muscle in particular. So they can kick and they can break through the flesh if they do kick hard, but they would rather just get out of the area altogether. So they would much rather rely on their speed. So it is quite calm here at the moment. I can hear quite a few birds calling. I can't hear anybody that sounds unhappy out here. So I don't think there is a predator close by, unless maybe Kara has done a bit of a loop and she's stalking from the other side, which is very possible. But it's always good to just stop and check. And it is nice to see that all of the youngsters are starting to get their little horns and everything like that. They're growing up very quickly. When I left, they were still looking quite small, and now they're definitely getting a lot bigger. They grow so quickly, and you can imagine you really have to. You have to grow very fast out here as a herbivore, because especially something like an impala is the main prey species for everything, and an impala lamb is the perfect bite size for every predator out here. Nice to see them growing fast. I'm going to carry on though. I'm going to leave these impalas to the relaxing. And we will carry on. I want to do a bit of a loop and check down from Sandy Patch down towards Impala Road and down Impala Plains, and then back up Triple M, the western boundary. Because those tracks of that female leopard were very fresh, and I do think it's most likely Kara in this area. It could also be Shidulu, it could be even Sele. So you never really know which leopard you're tracking until you find it, unless there's a very specific track that you can recognize as a specific individual. And those tracks were literally on top of the hyena tracks, going up and coming back. So not even just one way, they were fresher both ways. It was a loop that was done sometime this morning before we came out. And the scat in particular was still very fresh. There were a few flies, but nothing that was still like steaming, for example, so not within the last 5-10 minutes. But it's worth a try. We'll see what we can do. While I carry on towards Impala Road and Impala Plains, wish me luck tracking, we'll head back over to Lauren.
Well, we bumped into the bull again. He's going to go right in front of the rain roof pole, which is fabulous. The cameramen just love that, but he's way too close to turn on the car, so we're just going to have to accept the fact that he's a younger bull, but my goodness, no less magnificent. I think he's thrown dust by way. Must be. When elephants dust bath, I always get covered in it. Either in my eyes or in my nose. Oh, that's a bit of a shame. He was right next to the car there for quite some time, but off he goes. So we shall bumble on. But he was very close originally to the den site. I just wonder if him approaching made Kalamba think, oh, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the drainage line. Can't understand you, Chulu, I'm afraid. I don't know what that update was. Did you get that job?
I guess.
Oh, I thought I had already wrapped on that question, but no, elephants wouldn't really fight for the matriarch position. Females. There can be disputes. Absolutely, there can be sort of breakups and kinship groups where a new matriarch will arise, but generally speaking, the matriarch is everything to a herd. Everything. Elephant herds and the way they have evolved in their strict societies would not survive without a matriarch. So generally speaking, they don't fight. Definitely not physical blows, but there has been sort of records of disputes where there are two clashing personalities. In that book I tell you about Beyond Words, it really details the different interactions and these core sort of, I don't know what word I'm trying to say here, core part that a matriarch has to play in this society. So disputes, yes. Fighting, I would say no. Some personalities, and the book goes into it in such great detail because they've been studying elephant dynamics and matriarchs in Amboseli National Park for decades. So they've got a lot of data and they're able to individually recognize the elephants, which makes a big difference. And it goes into sort of a wonderful explanation of how not every female elephant is destined to be a matriarch. She may try, but it's just not within that personality type. And if you think of humans, some of us are leaders, some of us are followers, some of us are creative, some of us are more sort of analytical. We're all different, and it's exactly the same for elephants. Not every elephant will arise to be a matriarch. This is a 2-track that Kalamba went down. I'm trying to think where that actually sort of adjoins. I know this property, but I'm going to bring up my live map on my phone and actually just see when she goes in. Yeah. Okay, we shall continue our mission. It just touches into that drainage line that I showed you earlier, and this is the sort of thicket that they've been hanging out on. It's also very wonderful. Where should we go next? After all that excitement. That was my mission for this morning. Track Kalamba. Find out where she went, and lo and behold, she just went back to the tank. Okay, I'm possibly going to head in the center of Juma and maybe check the hyena thing.
So we're driving along Impala Road and we've just found a lilac-breasted roller, and it actually took me a bit by surprise because we're so used to seeing those very distinct longer tail feathers on the side. But it's definitely a lilac-breasted roller, so possibly a youngster that hasn't really grown those streamers yet. But very beautiful regardless. It's quite backlit because of the overcast sky. But you can still see those colors, especially that purple and lilac around the face and down into the chest. And it's busy hawking at the moment. It's looking for insects. There are quite a few insects out today. I've seen spider hunting wasps, beetles, flies, a few butterflies as well. And so it's definitely perched up here hawking for insects at the moment. Lilac-breasted rollers are incredibly fast at changing direction in flight. So as soon as it sees something, it's either going to come down into the grass and just go for it straight away, and they've got a very good success rate, very high success rate I should say. Or if it's actually in flight and something flies past, it can fly off the branch, grab it in flight and then go back to the branch. But you can see as much as the body is not moving, the head is almost constantly moving, using that really good eyesight to look for any insects either moving through the grass or flying past. Preferably a lilac-breasted roller would actually go for something like a beetle on the floor instead of a flying insect because it's a lot larger and slower. So it provides better energy, better meal, but at the same time also easier to hunt. So the lilac-breasted roller itself will not use as much energy by coming down into the grass to grab something big. Oh, wow. Bit of a stretch this morning. Time to start waking up, apparently. It might actually fly. We've definitely hit a bit of a birding hotspot where we are. We're on... It's definitely seen something. Oh, it was another... Oh, it was an insect flying over. It was actually a moth. We've hit a pretty good spot here. There's some grey-headed bushwracks that I can hear calling in the background. A lot of smaller birds, but this lilac-breasted roller is giving us some pretty good entertainment because it has not stopped moving its head while it's hawking for these insects. And the way that it curved its head upwards there to look up as that moth flew over was quite impressive, very flexible. But it is quite unusual. I think this is the first close-up of a lilac-breasted roller I've had that doesn't have the streamer feathers on the tail. You can see it's quite a rounded tail. It doesn't have those two characteristic longer feathers, one on each side, that you would look for with a lilac-breasted roller. But with the colors, you can see it is one. It might just be a younger one that hasn't yet developed the longer feathers in the tail. From the shape of it, I thought it might have been a European roller from a distance. But as we got closer, you can see those colors and a little bit of white streaking down the lilac on the breast. It is looking quite fluffy around the beak still. Definitely could be a youngster. A juvenile. I think it noticed Owen's hand moving there and it gave us a bit of a stare. So we're actually only about maybe 3 meters from it. It's very, very close, very relaxed lilac-breasted roller. And I can hear a squirrel in the background that doesn't sound so happy. So I do want to just spend a little bit more time here listening in case there is something around like Kara or another female leopard. Tyler, it is absolutely gorgeous. Those colors are so characteristic and it's easy to see why it's the most photographed bird in Southern Africa. It really catches the eye, and even on a day like today where it's overcast, you know, the light makes it a bit tricky, but they are still just so beautiful, those pops of color all along the body. A bit of a rainbow in terms of colors. The rollers are actually one of my favorite families, but I think I prefer a purple roller to a lilac-breasted roller. Not that I have anything against them, I think they really are gorgeous. But to me, a purple roller, I've always loved purples and the different dusty colors of purple, the size, I just think they are really, really stunning. But this one's giving us quite a good show with all of its hawking. It's watching very carefully for any movement through the grass below it, for beetles and grasshoppers, anything that it can find, but also checking the sky as insects are flying over and past. I thought it might actually fly just now. It gave us a bit of a stretch and lowered itself on the branches, though it was going to fly off. But maybe just warming up for the morning, making sure it doesn't pull any muscles while it's flying. Definitely one of the longest sightings I've had of a lilac-breasted roller. They're normally flying around quite quickly. You can actually see beautifully from that angle that transition from the darker blue at the top of the wing or the shoulder down into that neon blue on the wing itself as it was stretching its head out to the right. Well, our left, its right. That look, I think, is my favorite look I've had all morning. As it kind of looks at us and tilts the head to the side. Now you can hear the grey-headed bushwrack in the background. One of the most haunting calls in the bush. Very characteristic, but normally we hear that in the drainage lines. We're actually approaching a seapline. We're on quite a high crest at the moment. A bit unusual to hear a grey-headed bushrack here. Perhaps just moving through. Thank you, lilac-breasted roller. Good luck with your morning hawking. Your hunting for insects. Right, we're going to leave this one. Oh, Hannah, yes, I have seen them doing the rolling motion. It's quite impressive. It looks a bit like a roller coaster ride. And it's a very beautiful display because they do a very big roll. It's not a small little loop, it's a big one. And so it really catches your eye. But it is quite an interesting display to watch because there's not that many bird species that do displays aerially so high up and so boldly. So it definitely is quite a pretty one. You can see where the name comes from if you've seen it. Okay, I'm going to head on, see what else I can find down here, and then I'm actually going to do a loop towards Triple M still and just see if any of those leopard tracks have crossed out. Because our western boundary is just on my right hand side. It makes a bit of a wedge with this road kind of diagonally down the middle. So I do want to just check and see if we can find anything. But speaking of leopards and leopard tracks, let's head over to Lauren, who's with Columba.
My Kalamba luck is never ending. We found her and I've solved the mystery, I think. Well, it wasn't really a mystery, but I think that beautiful den site we just came from wasn't so much a den site. It was more sort of holding space, stopping, pit stop, basically. I mean, I'd love it if she was using that, but I'm also glad because it was right next to the road. Very, very close to the road, as you all saw yesterday. So really, ideally, if people didn't know that that is a den site and they're driving and they're just maybe driving a bit too fast, you get where I'm going with that. So now we're back to the original den site where I believe Rexon originally had her with you all, where we got the first incredible views. So it's still in that drainage that I told you about. You can actually access it from Central, but it's hairy, or you can access it from Goripan Road. And we've accessed it from Goripan Road. So the views are not amazing, but what's happening here is that we're actually quite far away, which is also a great thing because it just gives them time to relax. And I think this is just Mommy, I think the milk bar is open and it's time to rest. I think they went on a big mission last night. I think she did take them to food and she's just brought them back to the den site. Isn't this just so wonderful? Finally, finally, finally. It's not the best views, but that's okay. We've had more than enough. And it means she can also rest. Tucked away here. I think she stopped using this den site during the heavy rains. I think water would have started to really sort of build up. It's quite an intricate, deep, complex area, actually. Wonderful to stash cubs, but not if there's water flowing. The little cubs are mobile and bouncy and wonderful, but they could easily trip. They're still a little bit clumsy. I'm just so glad we finally figured out her movements. It's really, really peaceful in here. I've been checking here regularly. It's very, very accessible. It's very close to Goripan Road. And we are up the embankment looking down. It's quite easy just to come and check. But this is the first time I've spotted her here. And just a reminder to you, Tlalamba is part of the Genesis collection. So you absolutely can head over to our website if you're not on it already and read all about our wonderful Genesis collection that you can be part of. I think it's funny when you just see them bouncing in movements and tail swooshies. I think it's sleeping. Is it falling asleep? Normally when they get full tummies from milk and they're so full, just like us, they feel sleepy. I'm always ready to have a nap after a big meal. This is officially Tlalamba's kaya. I was talking about that the other day and I just love it. It's quite amazing how responsive they are to her chuffing. Naturally, of course they are, but it's interesting to just watch it. The minute she chuffs, they react. It's almost like a command. They respond immediately. And at this stage, it's all they really know. They just really know mom. And they're learning from her every day. That's her role as a mother, to teach both cubs basically how to be leopards. They've got a lot of stuff to figure out on their own. But at this stage, they really do respond to mom's stay. They know when not to follow. They know when to follow. They understand her signs, her behavior in cases of warning or something's wrong. They're copying her like crazy. Yesterday we were watching, Tlalamba was sort of curling round her tail, raising the white flag, we call it, when they're walking, as if to say, calm down everybody, I'm not going to kill you. You know, just walking, just taking a stroll. And they were copying. Mom put her tail up, they all put their tail up. And at this stage, it's probably not functional. They don't really know what they're doing. It's learning, it's mimicking, learning through observation. I may have to call this in soon, but it's ideal because we're really, really far away. And if Davi could just possibly zoom out completely, you'll see just how dense and complex this sort of area is. Luckily, we know this spot. Otherwise, look at that. You would never. You only know because you know.
She's blending in so well.
Jade, yes, she is blending in so well. The wonderful part about being a leopard. Oh, look. Twitchy, itchy. Insects are probably crawling all over her or landing on her. But she does blend in. And although when you look at a leopard print, synthetic leopard print that humans wear, we all love to wear leopard print, or some of us do, on our bedding or whatever, it's difficult to imagine that out in the wild that pattern and coloration would blend in so well, because in our home or on our bodies as an item of clothing, it's quite striking and it really stands out when someone's wearing leopard print. But actually in the wild, in a scenario like this, it really does blend in both seasons. She really does blend in the summer when everything is like rich emerald green. She's still very camouflage. You would never spot the cubs. I don't think I would have spotted the cubs, that one that's sleeping up there. I only spotted Mom. She stands out. But I don't think I would have picked out a leopard cub here. This is such a precious sighting. We may stay here a tad longer, and then let Tlalamba get on with her nap.
So I've made my way around towards Triple M. So I'm now driving on the western boundary. I'm going north back towards Gowrie Gate. And I've done a little bit of a loop just to check if there are any of those leopard tracks crossing out, and we should be approaching the area soon where she crossed towards the boundary. So we just want to check and make sure whether or not the leopard did actually cross out here, or if it changed direction, or maybe even decided to lie down for the day. I do feel like with the hyena and lion activity so close by that maybe she would have crossed back up west, just trying to stay safe. Would make the most sense. So I'm just driving slowly, checking for tracks along here. The road is quite hardened, but on the edges, on the fringe, there's quite a lot of soft sand, so you can see tracks quite a bit easier. Also going through quite a few little drainage lines and things. There are some nice tall trees around, drainage lines to hide in and stay sheltered. I'm wondering, well, I guess the commotion would have attracted the leopard, but wondering what must have gone through that leopard's mind when it heard the commotion and smelt the tracks and saw the tracks and followed the scent, and then realized, hang on, I gotta turn around. I wonder where that defining moment happened. Actually, where the leopard turned was very, very close to where the carcass was last night, right next to the road. Now the lions have moved it. So maybe it got a little bit closer and realized, hang on, time to turn. Don't want to get myself into too much trouble by walking into a crowd of lions on a kill with hyenas around. Definitely not a good recipe.
She has repositioned. She went over to one of the cubs as if to say, come on now, don't sleep. It's time to get some milk. Tlalamba needs to do her part, and then she will leave them. She won't stay with her cubs all the time. I just don't think they've been moving much the past few days, which is why we haven't picked up on one single track. She needs to feed, even if she doesn't bring them to the kill site. She needs to feed in order to, of course, provide nutritious and rich milk for them. And bringing a carcass back to the den is really, it's not what she'll do. It is believed she actually possibly did that with the other litter or close to the den, and she won't do that. That attracts far too much attention. Hyena, even a jackal, anybody, even another passing leopard or passing lion, they're going to be attracted to the smell of a carcass. So now she takes them to the kill. The visual's not great. We will get ready to leave now. I think we've had more than enough luck with Tlalamba. Benson, you are asking what happened if someone shows up at the den.
Tandy.
Tandy. I don't think she would. I haven't seen Tandy in this part of the world, in this part of the reserve, in a very, very long time. She used to use it, absolutely. She used to use this exact drainage line. But if Tandy did appear, I'm not sure. If Tlalamba was here, nothing would happen. They would probably have a standoff. But if Tandy came across the cubs on their own without having a sort of understanding of who these cubs belong to, I'm really not sure. Female leopards are known to kill other female leopards' cub, but naturally this is Tandy's bloodline. I mean, these two cubs are Tandy's grandchildren. I'm really not sure, but I really don't think it would happen. Of course, leopards move, but Tandy has really not been in this part of the world since she had Maribs when he was very, very young. But I've seen Tandy and Tlalamba interact. Davi and I had that incredible sighting. And it was amazing to witness because they were having a standoff and Tandy was growling and Tlalamba was growling and they were both just, well, not happy with one another, but there was absolutely no physical contact. And it almost was like Tlalamba did act a bit aggressive, but not with any intention. Tandy was growling as if to say, go away, I'm here with Maribs, go away, you can hunt yourself. And it was almost as if Tlalamba was saying, no, I want some of this too. I'm your daughter after all, and I'm bigger than you now. It was the most fascinating encounter. But it didn't come to any physical blows. And if you think about my sighting with Tlalamba and Shasha, that was very physical. She walloped him across the face. He literally left with his tail between his legs. And that is because that's her mother. And that is Tandy's daughter. It wouldn't make sense for them to harm one another. That's the bloodline. The most important thing about survival. So in answer to your question, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's possible. That is why Tlalamba is using this eastern sector, because no one else is. Would she understand, Tandy, whose offspring they are if Tlalamba wasn't around? Possible, through scent. They'll smell like their mum. Did you catch that name?
Sierra.
Sierra, not really. It's not a hierarchical system like hyenas. So I think we're dealing with one boy and one girl here. But it's not a strive for dominance. One will be bigger. The boy generally is bigger. But it's not a case of dominance like hyenas where they will be fighting the minute they come out of the womb. So no, not really. The boy will be bigger, but that doesn't necessarily mean more dominant. Just like Shasha and Langa, they will grow up to have different life paths. The males will disperse eventually, like Shasha's sort of going very nomadic and independent now. And Langa's finding her feet and taking a section of her mother's territory, which I am hoping is the northern section. But that's just confirmation bias. She could absolutely also touch down in Mala Mala because Sabue also extends down that side. It really depends what section her mother sort of gives her, if you like, but I'm just hoping it's the northern sector. Because that touches into Juma and Chitwa. But that's really just wishful thinking. So the male and female have very different life paths. One stays in the natal area, mother's territory. One disperses. And I think we are going to get ready to navigate out the den now. We're fast asleep. The view's not spectacular. We know where they are, so we're just going to slowly extract ourselves and remove ourselves from the area and bumble a little bit closer to home, I think. Okay, on that note, we're going to slowly leave Miss Tlalamba to sleep and send you guys over to Tessa.
Hurry up.
Okay, so we are back with the Talamati Pride. They look like they're coming down towards the dam. Still a patchy view. But we've got a herd of elephants that's coming from the dam and moving across towards the road. Now the lions have been watching them a little bit, but it's not of a big concern for either the elephants or the lions at the moment, because the lions are so full and they're on opposite sides of the dam. It's definitely looking like they've eaten far too much this morning. And that looks like it might be a young male, just from the dark around the neck. I think it looks like a small mane, but I mean the distance away is quite impressive. The other lions are still lying where they were, so we're going to try and reposition as much as we can and get you a gap. But at the moment our best view is actually the elephants. Little family crossing the road. You can see the matriarch, the one in the front, she is sniffing as she's going. She is being a bit more careful than usual when they cross the road. Ayanda, I'm so happy we could make it a lucky day for you. 2 of the big 5 in one sighting. And it's interesting to see how the elephants they're moving very relaxedly, but as soon as they got into the road, that matriarch stopped and she was sniffing around. And that's because exactly where they crossed is where the lions were lying yesterday. So they can definitely still smell them around the area, and they do want to be careful as they're moving off. And just like that, pretty much all the elephants are gone. This one at the back is it looks like a young male, and walking with its trunk up, sniffing the air. They're actually just getting to the clearing now and moving off a little bit. Okay, so everybody's relaxing again. The elephants have moved off, and it looks like the lions are still just enjoying sitting next to the dam. So now that it's heated up a bit, the lions will be done with feeding. And so now it's time to start trying to rest, try and cool the body down and get digestion going. And so I'm sure sitting right next to the water like that is a massive advantage, not only because it's going to keep them cooler, they don't need to hide from the sun luckily, but at the same time it's going to allow them to be able to drink as much water as they need throughout the day, just to keep digestion going smoothly and also keep that body temperature down. So it is going to be a bit of a tricky maneuver for myself and Owen, trying to find some gaps for you. I believe there is a game viewer there with them, and I believe that pretty much the whole pride is now lying around the edge of the dam. So we're going to try and get a gap for you, and hopefully we get to show them to you. And he did say that the male was there as well, so we'll see if we can get a view. But the way it's going at the moment, the very small gaps we're working with, this is the only clear view of a lion that we've got. One of the sub-adult males, it looks like. So we'll try and reposition a little bit more, see if we can get any gaps for you, and hopefully we can see a few more of the lions. But cross your fingers and toes that we have enough of a gap that we can see a whole lion lying there, not just one, but maybe a few.
Left the leopard den side. So it's nice just to be bumbling, get the breeze. We're going to go past one of the dams, Buffelshoek Dam, and then slowly start to head back in towards camp. I'm hungry. It's been quite a drive. I'm always hungry. But you always should just, if you're near a dam, just swing by. Dams are sort of hubbubs of activity. All sorts of things happen around there. In summer, the activity is not so concentrated, but still, the vegetation is the most sort of palatable and sometimes nutritious around the water body, and therefore that will attract all sorts of life. It will attract the herbivores, which naturally can attract the predators. It attracts elephants and buffalo because they're heavily dependent on water, and naturally is a wonderful place for birds and insects. So we're just going to swing past there and see if anything's happening. We found our leopardess this morning because on overcast, grey days like this, it's actually not so easy to find animals. Weather affects their movement quite heavily.
Vehicle on Valley connect.
So just around this corner is the dam, so we're going to sit there and see if we can see any life.
Just to show you how tough of an angle we are working with, we're back in our original position, and we're definitely trying to find a gap here, and all we can see is grass. So this is where we were parked earlier, just to give you a bit of perspective. Those guarri bushes are exactly where the lions were. They're behind there on the bank, and we cannot see a single one from here. So it really is quite a tough view.
Whether he's in your line of sight, can you?
The game view is checking whether they're in the shot. So at the moment where we are, you definitely can't see any lines. So we're going to have to go back up the road again onto the other side of the crest and see if we can find a little bit of a gap in the tree line, and hopefully see a few more of those lions. Almost all that I can see is just birds around the dam. It's quite a nice calm morning still. So it would be interesting to see if they do start getting up and moving, because as much as it is still overcast, it is going to keep heating up. And so I wonder if the lions are going to try and find some form of, not really direct shade, but some form of shelter anyway, because I'm sure the sun is going to start breaking through the clouds just now. And it'll be very interesting to see if they do get up and move. I am quite keen to try and get a view of the male, but all of the gaps that we've had so far, all of the gaps we've had so far, we've only been able to see that sub-adult male, or what looked like a sub-adult male, and then little patches of those two lionesses where we first saw them earlier. So I definitely can smell the buffalo carcass, or where they killed it anyway and hid it under the tree. We're sitting right at that spot again. It's right behind the vehicle. And I'm wondering if there's any hyenas that are hiding out as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some hyenas just on the edges of the thickets in the tall grass, waiting it out patiently, just like we've been playing the patience game, waiting for those lions to move off so that they can come and get some scraps. It does sound like there is still part of the carcass left, so there is still some food here for the lions, and I think they'll be here for the day, just kind of going between relaxing, drinking, and feeding as the day carries on. The vultures are definitely going to wait it out as well. They are still perched in the trees, and they'll be waiting for that moment where the lions decide to move off and become less active, because now that the lions are awake, we can see that male with his head up. It does mean that the vultures will be a little bit more skeptical of coming down, because the lions are actually monitoring and watching. If they were flat sleeping on their backs, it would be a very different story. The vultures might try and chance it. You can just see them there in that dead tree. So interestingly enough, if you listen carefully, there aren't any birds alarm calling. There are impalas in the thickets around the dam. They're not alarm calling. The elephants didn't trumpet. So as much as there are lions here, the animals aren't actually actively alerting us to that. Not that they would actively do it for us, but you know what I mean is they're not calling as though there are lions here. Maybe because the lions have been here for quite a while, so all of the birds and things have gotten used to their presence and they've stopped alarm calling. They've realized the lions are no longer a threat. But it is quite fascinating to note that there isn't even a single animal that is trying to alert us or each other. Luna, yes, definitely. Lions will go for vultures and hyenas. Anything that's trying to scavenge from the carcass will get chased by the lions. And they just don't tolerate it. So I've never personally seen a lion kill a vulture. I have seen a lion run at vultures and kind of smack them out of the way. Because what happens is, because the vultures are so big and they're very heavy, they need a lot of space to take off. They've got a very wide wingspan, much wider than the vehicles. It's close to about 1.8 meters wide, usually. And so what happens is they need the space to take off, and if a lion manages to creep up on them and come running at the last minute, the vultures kind of scatter and bounce to try and take off, and that process can take a while, unfortunately. So it can mean that the lions can actually make contact with the vultures. One of the most unusual sightings that I've seen, and definitely one that sticks in my mind, and I know it sticks in my mom's mind as well because she took some very beautiful photographs that day. There was actually an elephant carcass when we were driving ourselves around in the Kruger National Park, and this elephant carcass must have had, it looked like thousands of vultures, but it was, many, probably close to 100, if not more. But in total, in the whole area between vultures and the trees, circling above the carcass and on the elephant carcass itself, because it was an adult elephant, it was a big carcass, there must have been hundreds of vultures. And as the day was going on, they were chasing each other, and there were just vultures flying off of the carcass and landing pretty much all the time. And it was just so incredible to see all of them coming in, fighting the noise, the commotion. And then, of course, every time they got a fright, it was this mass explosion of vultures flying off of this carcass. And it was such an interesting interaction to see, because the noise from it, the feathers that were flying, the group reaction, it moved like a wave through the group of vultures. And I think we sat there for a very long time, but it was absolutely fascinating. There were no other predators around. There were no lions, there were no hyenas. Well, actually, there may have been hyenas. I actually can't remember. I just remember being so focused on this mound of vultures. It looked like a big moving pile. And when you looked at it closely, it was this pile of vultures on top of the carcass, and the movements and the noise and literally feathers flying. There were just vulture feathers everywhere. And there were some really stunning photos that my mom took of them coming into land and taking off, and just the commotion around this carcass. It was in a big clearing as well. There's some trees around the sides, and I just remember being absolutely blown away. I'd never seen that many vultures before in one place. So we are going to try and move again just now, just to go and see if we can find that gap. But hopefully we can actually get a view of some more of the lions, not just the one sub-adult male, so we can get a bit of a better idea of which lions are here, how many, those kinds of things. I think I'll head towards doing that now. I'm going to go to the other side of the dam, the left-hand side, and see what we can find. Speaking of, we'll head over to Lauren. She is actually sitting at a dam as well.
We are at Buffelshoek Dam. Believe it or not much is happening. But we got the hippo. When we first arrived, we were swarmed by dragonflies, but it's almost as if they come to inspect what you are, because when I get off the vehicle, they also fly all around me in really close proximity, and then they've now disappeared because they realize we're not actually that interesting or exciting. But nothing is really happening at Buffelshoek Dam. It's nice to check. It's nice to see a water body. I think this is the first, oh no, I saw twin dams. And I am very much hoping for an active hyena den this evening. I feel like I've not seen my friends in a while. I miss them. Someone was in camp waiting for me last night when we got back. It was either in Ndebele or Swazi. It's very difficult to tell in the dark. I think it was in Ndebele. Which is amazing, because it always used to be Swazi in our camp. I think we got really lucky yesterday finding those tracks and finding them just sort of sitting in a tree, taking a little bit of a pit stop on the way to wherever Tlalamba was leading them to from the den side. If you think about it, their little legs are tiny. They can't really move far fast. So they obviously took a bit of a break, and that's when we found them. I think we got really lucky. I'm just going to sit here and listen to the bird calls. It's really, really loud. Can you hear how loud that is? Before I forget, actually, I told you yesterday I had an update on Shadulu, and then obviously the drive just went from 0 to 100 really, really quickly. So Shadulu is currently denning just on the western side of Simba Dam wall. So you've got the wall just down the embankment she's denning. It's believed there are 2 cubs and it's currently negative lock. So cubs are alive and well and she is in fact on Simbambiri. So that is just a little update for you all as I sit and enjoy Buffelshoek Dam. We're just sitting at one of our water bodies, listening. I'm going to jump on the game drive radio, but we can just sit and appreciate all the beauty around the dam. Vernon, come in. We're going to leave the dam now and bumble closer to home and see what else we can find.
We were actually just repositioning to go back to the other side of the dam, the left-hand side, or the western side. And one of the lionesses popped her head up.
Vernon, do you copy?
And she kind of stared in this direction, but almost past us towards where the carcass was, because we've moved. And then I noticed her. She's just gone back down behind the grass, but we are just going to spend another minute here just in case she does come back, because something caught her attention in the distance towards the direction of Sandy Patch. So she was looking kind of south. And I'm wondering if maybe there wasn't a hyena or something that she could hear or smell, because she was looking straight back towards where the carcass used to be. I think she has gone to lie down again though, but it was very interesting because she popped up and she had this very intent stare, and when she initially popped up she had flattened herself quite a lot as well. It almost looked like she was stalking, so I think she was gathering information on something. She relaxed a bit, popped up her head properly and then walked away. So whatever it was wasn't worth her standing and staring anymore. She gathered all the information she needed and she went back to resting. Craig, I'm actually trying to think. I don't know if I've gotten a full Big 5 in a sighting, But I have had definitely 3 of the big 5 in a sighting, and I may have had 4. I'm just trying to think. It's been quite a long 5 years, and you'd think that would stick out in my mind, and I'm sure it will when I dig through my memory bank and go to the storage right at the back of my brain and dust it off a little bit. But I know I've had sightings of leopards, rhino, and elephant together. I've had sightings of lion, leopard, and elephant together, and that was actually here. I had Maribs with the Umkuhumas, and then they got chased by elephants into Maribs, into a drainage line, and it was just a bit of splitting and chaos. It was quite an entertaining sighting. I've had buffalo, elephant, and lion. Those 3 together. I don't think I've had 4 together.
I've had buffalo, elephant, and shadulu.
No ways. Owen says he's had buffaloes, elephants with shidulu. That's very cool. Yeah, so you definitely do get quite a mix of the big 5 in some sightings. I know on some days you find, I found the big 5 within probably a 300-meter radius of each other before, where you're sitting with a sighting of 2 or 3 different species from the big 5. You go a little bit further down the road and you bump the other 2. So it's they can all be quite close together and quite happily coexisting. Gosh, it's actually quite tough going back in my memory bank. I didn't think it would be tough, but I need to dust it off a little bit. Open those filing cabinets right at the back of my brain and look for the ones right at the back somewhere. I actually have a journal where I've written some of my best sightings over the years, and especially, you have a lot of very interesting encounters on foot in particular. So that's something that my dad actually always encouraged me to do. When I first moved to the bush, they bought me a beautiful leather-bound journal with Africa's outline on the front, and very, very stunning journal. And they said to me I should write all of my best sightings and all of my favorite experiences, even if it wasn't a sighting, just a special experience in the bush. So I've got quite a lot of those written down. And I think in terms of small notebooks, I've got a lot of tiny notebooks where I've written a lot of my encounters and sightings. So I actually need to go and refresh my memory and go through them, because every time you read them again, it's like having the whole sighting all over again. It comes back in your mind and you can picture it. And I think we're in one of those careers where we could probably write books with the amount of stories and interesting encounters we've had, whether it's from guests or from animals or both. There's always something interesting happening, and I think a lot of the time people don't believe it actually happens. But it does. It definitely does. I've been chatting to Rexon a lot, and I'm trying to encourage him to write a book, because he's got such a wealth of knowledge and stories and so much vast experience in different places. But I think if he wrote a book, it would be a bestseller. Mine would be very limited. It would be maybe a chapter. Not nearly enough experience. As much as you're out here every day and you do gain a lot of experience and a lot of sightings, I feel like if you're going to have a very well thought out book with a lot of different content and a lot of funny encounters, you'd need quite a bit more time. But I do think some of them on their own could make best-selling short stories. So it does seem like everybody's gone back to sleep a little bit. I think what we might actually do is try and head back to the other side of this little drainage line, up onto the opposite crest, and see if we can find another gap. Maybe they are moving around closer to the water's edge where we can't really see them moving, but maybe they're repositioning a bit and we might get lucky and find a gap. I don't see anything where the lioness was looking. I don't see anything coming from that direction, so maybe she just heard something that she wasn't so happy with. There have been some impalas around. But let me move, see if I can get another gap for you, and hopefully find an actual lion to look at.
rumbling a little bit closer to home now. Change back in the end of the drive. I'm gonna try and make it to another dam, but will I get there on time? I hope so. It's been a really wonderful morning. But for now, we'll just give you some lovely views of the scenery. Dam now. We did Buffelshoek Dam. And see if we can just wrap up what has been a wonderful drive, considering the conditions. It's not raining or anything, it's been really, really grey. Stop at Galway Dam. I'm so glad we saw Tlalamba again. Figured out that misery. It's easy to keep up with an animal when you are keeping up with them, if that makes sense. When you know where they're moving, you know where the den site is, you know what areas they're sort of traversing, you know their territory, it's easy. But when you're removed from that, it's really tricky. But we've got there. It only took 10 days. And I think all of the Juma clan will be very, very busy, or has been busy with the carcass. Okay. I believe my signal is dipping, so we will just stop here. Look at the grey skies that I've been telling you about. Isn't it just so lovely to sit and listen? Okay, we are going to head to Gowrie Dam now and get through this tricky signal patch, and we're going to send you guys over to Tessa.
Okay, so we've done a bit of a repositioning stint. We've been trying our best to find a gap, and this is about as good as we can find. It is so thick in front of us because there's a little drainage line coming from the dam, and so it's blocking from where we are to where the lines are. So this is about as good as of a gap as we are going to get for now. They have moved around a little bit, so these lines are a little bit more in the open than they were. The other one that was in the open is now not there, so they have done a bit of a shuffle. And we've been doing a bit of backwards and forwards trying to find a decent gap. But you can see 2 lionesses at least, possibly a third, but we can't really make it out from this distance. You can see how well camouflaged they are, even through that gap. And you can see why it's been so tough for us to try and find a position. There's only about 2 gaps in total in this bank in front of us where we can actually see through to the other side of the dam. So we were just hoping we would get lucky and one of the lines would be out in the open here. Quinton, I'm so happy you've enjoyed the drive this morning. I think girl power is representing again between Tlalamba and the Talamatis. We've had some pretty good luck, and then elephants as well, you know, and all the little things in between. So I think it has been a pretty good drive. We've certainly enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that as the day goes on that the Talamatis might not move too far, but hopefully maybe just a little bit more into the open. And we can try and catch up with them again this afternoon and just see if they have moved at all, because it does look like they are too full to move too far away. From what we understand, there is still part of the carcass left as well. They're close to a waterhole, so I wouldn't anticipate that they're going to move very far, but we can never say never out here. It's very hard to predict what is going to happen. I would think they're still going to be here, and so one of us will definitely come past this afternoon and have a look, see if we can find a clearer view of them for you, and hopefully a bit of a head count so we can see who's in the pride, which male lion it is, and go from there. But it has been an absolute pleasure spending the morning with all of you. I'm so happy that you could join us, and I think you're all bringing us some pretty good luck with the Girl Power team. So please join us again this afternoon. We're looking forward to seeing what we can find and sharing it with you. And I'm sure that there'll be as many surprises as there have been this morning. Have a lovely day, everybody, and we will see you all a little bit later.